So now we look into what is this craziness, no? This madness that you can enter into when you go into an outer state of consciousness. So Plato in Phaedrus, he calls it telestic mania, ritual madness. And he speaks of these rituals that involve these ecstatic techniques. These are rituals performed as a cure for diseases and the greatest sufferings, which manifest themselves in certain families on account of some ancient form of wrath. Those who have a part in the rites are made whole in the present and in the future, and have a release from the evil which is afflicting them. So he's describing a process of psychological healing. Even he's talking about multi-generational trauma here. So certain families are afflicted by these sufferings because of some ancient form of wrath. Something happened in the past, and in these families and in these rituals, you can cure yourself. This is so amazing how, now with the psychedelic culture and shamanism and ayahuasca, we're talking about this. And so Plato was already mentioning this. So this altered state of consciousness, this kind of specific kind of madness, brings healing if done according to the rites of the ancient goddess. This is the point that I'm making. And what is the modern definition of this experience? With the words we use today, we talk about oneness consciousness, feeling one with everything, transpersonal awareness, being aware that it's not just us, there's much more, and the multidimensionality of everything, and the existence of different energies and agencies, the animacy, we would say, of the universe, embracing impermanence. There's birth, there's death, and then there's birth again, and then there's death again. Body-based mysticism, because it's not something you learn from your head. It's something that comes to you in form of insight. Trauma healing, as we said. So there is this knowledge that comes from being in direct contact with the transcendental forces of nature. Animacy, as I said before. So this is how we explain it these days. But also, this is very much focused on the individual. This is individual healing. And in the next lesson, we will actually speak about how the Greeks were using these techniques and these practices also in terms of group bonding, group healing, and beyond that into politics. So here this is still focused on individual healing. So a way that I like to describe this kind of experiences are also trainings in liminality. Liminality is the space in between. So in these experiences, you're not an animal and you're not a human. You're both. Are you an animal or a human? Are you wild or civilized? Are you a man or a woman? Is this madness or is this sanity? Am I drinking a poison or a remedy? And you see all of these dichotomies or opposites are transcended into these experiences because you have a physical, real, first-hand experiences of being both. You don't have to choose. It's not either or, it's both and. And this is something that I don't know if you can experience it in any other way. I mean, there is mystical experiences that can happen in near-death experiences and these kind of experiences. But still, these rituals were safe spaces, were ritualized spaces, were to have an initiation into the paradoxical nature of reality. Reality is like this. It's both and most of the times. And actually, if we go back to patriarchy, usually patriarchy takes these opposites, let's say, and put them even in a hierarchical order. So there is human on top of animal, there is civilized on top of wild, like one is superior to the other. And how crazy is this? or there's man superior to woman, or sanity or rationality on superior to madness and irrationality. And Dionysus just transcend all of these dichotomies and just go beyond and say, you know what, life is much more paradoxical and reality is much more paradoxical than what can be described through these dichotomies. So, what can we see about the Maenads so far? Maenads did not affirm traditional feminine roles. They go alone on mountains by themselves. They hunt wild animals and eat them raw. They get high with very different techniques. This is not appropriate behavior for Greek women already. So it doesn't offer, Maenads don't offer examples of appropriate behavior. They actually legitimize alternatives and some measures of autonomy for women. So this was already problematic. So are these women good women devoted to an ancient god, or are they crazy women that are breaking all the rules of Greek civilization? Because this is the beginning of Greek civilization. This is when the Greeks were trying to put order, to have a civilized behavior. So the Maenads do not conform to those guidelines. So here we see also another example. On one side, we have the Bacchantes going to the mountain, and on this other side, we have the daughters of Minia, I think it was called. This is another myth. They decide to stay at home. You can see they're turning the wool into a thread, and they were turned into bats. That's why there's bats here. So there is this dichotomy: who are the good girls and who are the bad girls? And this is like a few hundred years before the Virgin Mary. So it's already like something that is debated, like the women should stay at home and do women stuff instead of going to the mountain and be hunters like men. So Greek society became increasingly male-oriented and patriarchal, built on principles of rationality, moderation, self-control, and in the case of women, also chastity and fidelity. Women alone on mountains practicing madness-inducing rituals did arise many doubts, sparked rumors, triggered severe judgments, and generally contributed to a reputation of threatening invulnerability. It's scary for a man that a woman is invulnerable, and scandalous sexual freedom. So we see these in some lines from the Bacchae. Here we have Pentheus saying, I hear the bowls are full of wine amid their feasts, and they sneak off to this or that deserted spot to service men in bed, pretending to be some kind of raving priestesses, but serving, instead of Bacchus, love goddess Aphrodite. So he's saying that these girls, they say that they are some raving priestesses, but actually they are prostitutes. Because the women that served the love goddess Aphrodite were the prostitutes. So you can already see, like, this is so modern. We, as a raver, as a female raver myself, I know this kind of judgment on myself, even if I don't eat raw flesh of wild animals. More. Pentheus says, with women, when grapes appear at the feast, the rites, I can say, can never be good. And the chorus replies, what a disrespect for religion. Stranger, don't you respect the gods? So here we see this interplay between the new patriarchal culture and something more ancient, something religious and ancient that had different values. Tiresias, there is another character of the Bacchae, he's the blind seer. He says, Dionysus will not compel in sex or love a woman to act with self-restraint. No, for whether she's modest or not is up to her own nature. You must consider this. Even in ecstatic rites, she who is really moderate will not become corrupt. So he's saying that it's not Dionysus that, turns a modest woman into a wild beast. It's up to her nature. And so he says it's up to the nature of everyone. Don't blame the tools, don't blame the psychotropics, don't blame the psychedelics, don't blame the technique that you use. You need to understand your own nature and how your own nature is manifested in these rituals. So this is a very modern concept and very deep as well. And yeah, I always bring this quote because it's so modern, and now compared to last lesson, we start to hear the words of these people because we don't have the words of the Minoans, very little. And so here we start to hear the judgments, the way of thinking, the different kinds of values, and the way that women were treated, the way women were judged. This must have caused a stir when the Bacchae was shown in Athens, because it was in the mouth of someone representing Athenian institutions. So Tiresias is the character that represents Athenian institutions. So to say this was like a flipping of the coin and something that the Athenians were not expecting. And maybe this is why it was even more striking and maybe caught the attention of people even more.